Hi, and welcome to Creation Depot. My name is Wendy Little, and today we're going to be talking about the top web design trends for small business websites. All right, so my first tip, keep your design simple. I know, I'm sure you've heard this a million times from a bunch of different places in many different industries, but on web design and design in general, it is the utter truth. The more simple your design, the simpler it's going to be to update, the simpler it's going to be to maintain, and the simpler it's going to be for your visitor that's coming to your site that you want to do business with. So generally, it comes down to not cramming every single thing you possibly can onto one page. Space it out, go through your content, and just make sure that you're only giving people bite-sized chunks. Because most people just scan websites anyway. Unless you're a news site, they're not stopping to read any kind of articles. So just make sure everything is quick at a glance. You can figure it out and move on to what you next thing you need to do. If you sign up for an email list, if it's sign up for or go buy a product or go read an event like listing, whatever it might be, keep it simple. Keep it very, very simple, like a little bit of introduction about what you're trying to do, and then move them on. The second design tip, use a font that is readable, and generally that means headlines can be something called serif fonts. Serif just means like the little doohickeys on the end of fonts. That's a technical term. That just make it look more elegant, more cursive-y, more involved. Sans serif means take away, so no serifs on those, and those are your general like Arial style fonts, the ones that are just super, super plain. Use those on your body text. And important note is that don't make the fonts just like straight black. Make them like a really dark gray, or even like a medium to dark gray, but don't make them straight black because it's really hard to read on the eyes. So you wouldn't want to like read through something that was just very like stark and poignant at you, right? So don't do that. Just have like a dark gray and you'll be fine. All right, third thing, be mobile friendly. What does this mean? It means be responsive. What does that mean? It means that when you're looking at your website, you are looking at it on a desktop, a tablet, in a mobile or a mobile device like a cell phone, and just making sure that on all those different screen sizes, it works. And that could mean a bunch of different things. That could mean that your images disappear when it gets to mobile. It could mean that your images just change out to something else when they get to mobile. It could mean that certain features just completely disappear when they get to mobile. The thing with mobile is that you need it to load a little bit faster, so your site has to be smaller. So big ticket items like videos and images, they generally are the ones that get kicked. But for the most part, mobile is speeding up, and most mobile now uses Wi-Fi, so file size isn't as big of an issue, but you still have the usability part of it. So your buttons need to be a certain size, for example. Your links need to be readable. They need, like, when you shrink your font down, can you still read it? You know, is it big enough that you can read at a small size? So most WordPress themes come with responsive design now, so you can kind of tweak it to where you want it to be. Just make sure that when you're going through and using your mobile site, it's called fat fingering. It's when you like try to click a button and you can't because your finger is bigger than the point that the device is trying to register. So like if you had a stylus, for example, you could probably like pinpoint it. Make sure that that's not going to be a problem for your customers, and that things like swipe, you know, like if you're trying to like swipe through a slideshow, make sure that those functionalities are included if you have a cause to use them, because it does enhance the user experience at the mobile level. Like you couldn't do that on a desktop swiping, but you could at a mobile. So kind of think about how your user is going to use that page in a mobile device, and think about ways that maybe you could speed up their usage. All right, number 4, no under construction pages, none whatsoever. If you don't have content ready, don't post it. Like you can put it in draft mode on your site if you want to, but do not post it, because under construction pages just show you the world that you are not collected and organized and ready for them. So just don't post it. Just don't do it. It is a pet peeve of mine. I see it all the time, and it's just, why? Why show people a half blipped product? You don't need it, don't do it. All right, number 5, design a style and stick with it. And I'm not just talking about like choosing your branding colors, choosing your fonts, choosing your font sizes, choosing how much spacing you have between a button and the text. You know, choosing your line height, choosing what you've chosen, every possible design element that there is to choose. stick with it. Put it into a piece of paper somewhere or digital paper somewhere, something called a style guide, and stick to it. And the reason that this is important is that if you ever have to have any kind of outsourcing, you can be like, here's my style guide. And that style or that designer can take that style guide and develop branding specific media. And they can't do that if you've got so much inconsistency across your website and your other marketing materials. So once you decide, I'm going to use this font and I'm going to use this color, and these are the colors I'm going to use for my main colors and my accent colors. Once you have made those choices, just stick with them. And it's not to say that you can't modify them over time, because we all change over time, especially with trends and things like that. But just keep it as consistent as you possibly can, because as your customers come to know you, they come to know your branding, and you want that all to be consistent across the board. Number 6, accent colors. Bright colors are awesome, only as accent colors. Do not try to be like really cool and have like a really bright highlighter behind your links or something. Like a lot of news sites try to be trendy and they have like bright blue or bright yellow background behind their links. Or if you try to select the text, it turns bright pink. It's cool. It does have that cool factor. But the problem is that your text becomes hard to read. It's not, I just shy away from that kind of stuff so bad, because I just think it just muddies the water for your design elements so much. Now, accent colors are awesome to use on little pieces of your site and around your site. Like if you've got like hot pink is your color, and you are trying to use that to like be the underlining of your headliner, or if you're trying to use it for the like a weird kind of drop shadow thing on one of your images, that's cool. Use it that way. But when it's the main item, these bright colors, all they do is decrease usability and readability of your site like 900%. Remember, like websites all kind of look the same for a reason. It's because they've all kind of become standardized. And the reason they become standardized is because there is like social science proof that the simpler a site is, or the more simple it is in terms of like navigation, the simpler it is in terms of colorization and everything else, the better it works. It's just the better it is for anybody. And of course you want to brand it to your colors, but just don't have like a blazing green, neon green, or neon yellow be your main color, because you're just gonna, especially an older crowd, you're just gonna shoo them away. And speaking of an older crowd, if your audience is older, and I'm talking like 50 and up, and this isn't like a push on anybody that's 50 or up, but it's the honest to God's truth. Once we start getting older, our eyes don't work as well, typically. And what ends up happening was when you're looking at text, you need to consider that if you're like, let's say your audience, is going to be 50 and older, and those are your clients, and those are the ones with the deep pockets for what you're trying to do. You don't want to have a site that is not going to be user-friendly to them. So just because it is, I hate this word, but like millennial site, like just something that's like trendy and flashy and things moving here and there. But if you're trying to market like glasses, for example, speaking of visually, if the site is not geared towards the way that they use your site, you're screwed. You're not going to make any money, because people don't want to use your site because it's a nuisance to them. Like they can't figure out what the text says because it's too small, or they can't figure out how to navigate something because they're not that tech savvy, and that's kind of the thing you need to keep in mind, is that an older crowd isn't going to be as like technologically with it, and they're not going to be as, in general, I'm speaking total generalities here, okay, and they're not going to be something that needs to be visually or even audibly like accessible. So keep that in mind when you're working with these kinds of things. Like it depends on your subset. If you are trying to market a site to someone who is visually impaired, who's hearing impaired, who maybe has a mental disability, or those kinds of very specialized disabilities, you're going to want to cater your site to them, not to you. That's what I'm trying to get at, is that if you can use the site just fine and you figure everyone must be, you're not thinking like you would for your customer. You need to put your feet in the customer's shoes and be like, all right, well, they're using this site. How are they using the site? Like, for example, screen readers for visually impaired, they use the tab key to navigate through everything because using the mouse is impossible. Number 8, Not having a clear call to action. Your call to action is so important on every single page. I don't care what page you're on. If you're on the home page, your about page, if you're on a team page, if you're on the contact page, every page that you are on has to have a call to action, because unless they have purchased what they need to purchase and they're signing off and closing that browser window, you're not done. You know, it's like you want them to keep moving through your site until they get to doing what you want them to be doing, whatever that thing is. You know, if you want that, if you're building a church website and your whole goal is just to get more people to come to church, well, you're not done until that person says, I'm going to be coming to church. So you got to figure out what's going to get them in those seats, what's going to help get that to happen. And for every church scenario, it's going to be a different scenario. Like if it's an online church, you might want to have them sign up for the webinar that's going to be broadcasting the sermon, you know? So the only way to make that happen is to have a call to action to send them to that sign up place, or to get on an email list that's going to send out the link where the broadcast is going to happen every time. So those are the things you want to think about. You got to get in those shoes and think about, how am I going to get them to the next action? And every page needs to have a call to action to move them to the next step. And they're not all going to be the same next steps. If they're on the about page and you want them to contact you, you're going to push them as call to action to an email form. If you're on a product page, your call to action is going to be, hey, add this to your cart. If you're on a checkout page, your call to action is going to be like a use PayPal to check out. That's what I'm getting at, is that every page has a next action. What's that next action going to be? And if they are kind of finally done, your final action should be, hey, let's add you to my email list so that we can talk further down the line, or come follow me over on my socials. All right, number 9, and this is a big doozy, is usability. So most of us have Google Analytics installed on our sites. If you don't have Google Analytics, it is likely that you have some kind of analytics in your control panel for your hosting. I would go check that out and see kind of what you're working with, because what you want to find out when you look at the analytics is what the popular pages are. And if the popular pages are not the pages that you're trying to push, you want to think about how you can use those popular pages to push them to the not so popular pages that are the pages that you actually wish people would go to. And there's a whole SEO world behind this I'm not going to get into, but if you want to make the other page more popular, consider what you can do on the popular page to get people to click through to the unpopular page and kind of get that page moving up. All right, and last but not least, the biggest tip I can give you is to conform to web standards. And I'm not saying make your site bland and not make your site have some design flair to it. But if you don't conform to some design standards, like for example, that the menu is always at the top, the hamburger menu is always on the top right, those kinds of things. If you don't conform to general layout standards, it's going to hurt you, because you're making the customer think way too much. If they come to your site and they can't figure out how to click through to get to the search bar, or if they can't figure out how to click to get to a product, if they come to your site and they can't figure out where something is, because the sidebar is not on the right, it's on the left, that kind of thing. I'm talking about structural stuff. If it doesn't have the structural integrity, it's not going to be helping you at all. So yes, stay within the general like wireframe guidelines, but you can still be creative, you can still do cool things. But if you need to stick with those standards that have been developed over the last few decades that the internet's been around, otherwise you're just going to be hurting yourself. Remember, people only care about your website for seconds. So if they're clicking on Google and they get to your site and they can't figure out how to use it because you have hidden the search under a menu bar in the top left, and it's, doesn't have a standard icon to click on to bring it up, something bizarre like that, like you think you're being very clever, what happens is that the user spends those precious seconds that you have, maybe 10-15 seconds. They spend that time trying to find the thing that they want, but they can't find it. They wonder why Google sent them here, and they go back and they look for another link. They hit the back button. And you don't want that. You want people to click through and find ease in your site. They want to be able to get through and just kind of flow to whatever it is they need, but that's not going to happen if you stray from standard web standard stuff. So, and that thing about people only caring for your site for seconds, that comes from a really good book that's been around for ages. I think it's in its 3rd iteration right now, but it's a book called Don't Make Me Think by Steve Krug. And I'll put the link down below to Amazon for it. It is awesome. I mean, you don't need any kind of web background to understand what this is about, but it talks about usability and when you're laying out your content, how to think about things and why why those precious seconds matter and how to get through it. It's just a good book for anybody, and it's a super quick read. Like it's like maybe 100 pages, but almost the entire thing has a giant picture on every single page. So you're gonna blow through it like that. It's a super quick read, like a short airplane flight. It's awesome. But highly recommend it. So that's it for me. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the YouTube comments below, because I'm on YouTube all the time and it's the quickest way to get a hold of me. If you want to reach out to other social media, I am on Instagram at Wendy_literal, 2 T's. And I'm also at Creation Depot on Twitter. And of course, you can always catch me on the website, creationdepot.com. All right, that's it for now. Take care. Talk to you later.